Hello, hello, and welcome back to the show. Kim here and Danielle.
How's it going, everyone? Yeah, so we're going to do a call today just on current events and how it relates to all of us and what's going on in the world. And we're going to be specifically talking about corruption and leadership and how that applies on like a global level, as well as what we're seeing in our communities and in our own lives, and really how we can come into more harmony and to accept the shadows of corruption and to see how to move through it and seeing the corruption within ourselves as well. And just really kind of relating that to a lot of different things. So yeah, we called today's video Respond Ability, which I think is always an interesting way to think of responsibility. Because that's what it is, right? What we're finding with these codes is that, yes, they're all genetic and the entire matrix of life and our being, our DNA, everything has these codes in them that respond or are turned on or expressed in a certain way. And especially with leadership and harmony and values, right? Integrity, it's actually coming from a place of response to what is needed in the community. And specifically gate 50 is what we're talking about today. The moon is on gate 50. Gate 50 happens to be my main code in my chart, the 50.6. So I am a little bit more familiar with this one. And yeah, so it's the gate of values and it's in the spleen. So if you know about human design, it's that triangle on the left and it's reaching over to the sacral. So what we're understanding with this code is that it's an instinctual, spontaneous, in the now response to what is needed to care for, which is the 27, the tribe and children and everything like that. So I think it's a really good topic to discuss today because we're seeing so much corruption being revealed on the planet, corruption in our own communities, like especially with like the coaching communities. I know Kim's going to talk a lot about that. So yeah, we're going to dive right in and kind of discuss that. So yeah, Kim, do you want to talk a little bit about what you've been telling me the past couple of days with what you're seeing in the coaching community and all that?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. So it's not just in the coaching community. And that's where I was like, okay, what's happening? Because Danielle is my like planet woman. I'm like, there's something happening out here. I'm seeing all this calling out, this backlashing. There's in the coaching community, in the yoga community, in the health, medical and health community, it's the same thing. So there's got to be something else to it. And I have wide open head and ajna. So I'm like super curious right now. I'm like, okay, let's put this together so we can understand it. And then we realize that it's not personal, because whenever you're first hearing it and seeing it, we do take things personal, right? It's how we experience life. And when we have an understanding that things are not necessarily coming from us or for us, it's actually just happening, but we sometimes interpret it or take the blame or find guilt or backlash. And so it's like, that's what I'm seeing is there is a lot of victim mentality and there's a lot of victim blaming. So there is, which I'm not saying victim is a bad thing. We are all victims. And that is the first step to awakening and awareness, is realizing that we are victims of our own life, right? That this shouldn't be happening to me, or I don't understand why it's different for me than it is for them. That's all victim stuff. But what I'm seeing is these, I'll say victims, like in a light way, are like expressing their experience. Like, this is what I bought into. This is what I thought I was going to get. This is what was being marketed. This is what was being sold to me. And then when I get in there, it's not at all what's been portrayed on the sales page or, you know, whatever the webinar or however it was presented is not how it's happening. And when they voice that, then the ones who are profitable in the selling are like trying to shut them down and like make it invalid. So that's what I'm seeing. That's what I reached out to you about. That's what I've been talking about in my own community. I see both sides, which almost feels like a curse, because it's like I can ride the middle road and I can see, oh yeah, I can see where they think that. Oh, I can see where they think that, because I've been in both positions, right? I've been the leader. I've gotten the backlash. I've gotten the accusations, and I've also been the victim. And so it's like, there's, I'll say a misunderstanding, like of that ability to be neutral. And that creates distrust. Because I was talking to someone and I was like, I don't understand. She's like, we don't know what side you're on. So it's not easy to trust you. But now after talking to you, I realize you kind of don't have an opinion, which is rare, not to be on one side or the other, not to have that bias, but most people are. So anyway, that's what I want to talk about. Like what's going on that is creating all of this. And you kind of explained it, because if we can understand it, we can play the game.
Right, right. And it's interesting because like the 50th code, right? It's all about like what is corruption? You know, we can think of corruption on the planet like, oh, the bankers are corrupt and the government, all this stuff that we all know. But it's also corruption in how your DNA rewrites itself, which I also find interesting, especially with the mRNA gene therapy, which is like corrupting our natural DNA, right? And things like that. So it's just on every level, like down to the DNA level, to the, you know, tribal, like our teams and the networks and the collective level, all of that. But yeah, it is really about these social values, and it comes from fears, right, of hierarchies, right? This is why corruption happens, because it is that data corruption. It's like not written correctly. And then we have all this fear coming in about hierarchies, because that's like built into our DNA. So we can look at every level on that, even just in our communities and things like that. What do we actually value? Do we value like putting people above us and like, you know, or us above other people? Or is it more about this equilibrium, that balance, that no opinion kind of situation where we're in this equilibrium space? And everyone is equal, right? There are hierarchies that exist, but really it's heterarchy or synarchy, right? Working together, but everyone having their different roles. So that's really what we're all kind of processing and experiencing. But some of the shadows that can show up from corruption, when we corrupt how we experience something, or the data was corrupted, like we went to that website, we thought we were getting what they said, and then we didn't get it. Or we, you know, it could have been our own corruption, right? Thinking something, but it's really about responsibility, right? So responsibility is your ability to respond. And the shadow of this, there's two ways it can show up, because the 50 has the fear of responsibility. That's what lets us know what our values are, is our fear of responsibility. And it can show up in two ways, right? We're either irresponsible, like we're not taking care of certain things, or we become like overly responsible, you know, especially from like perceived social responsibility, taking on responsibilities that aren't ours, you know, and things like that. And again, that takes us away from our own responsibility. So where in your life are you not being responsible, or you're literally not responding to it? You're kind of just like not being accountable for your actions or how you are, and you know, your role as a leader or for creating harmony. And then where are you also taking on other people's responsibilities that they could do, and not allowing them to have that responsibility for themselves? Because I believe also with responsibility is power, right? Because when you respond and you have that ability, then you have, you know, the power of whatever that is, and you become the leader, and hopefully creating harmony rather than corruption. So yeah, it's pretty interesting how this code operates.
Yeah. And I'm seeing from like the responsibility part, and what I'm experiencing reading, you know, both sides to this, is the person who, so first of all, there's the marketing someone else's results, saying if they can do it, you can do it too, but they're only marketing and highlighting the ones who are very successful. And so there's this eye candy, right? Like, oh, look, everyone's doing it. It's okay for, you know, and so there is that part. So it's on both sides. And then I see it from the other side, which is, yeah, you can go to college and become a doctor or a lawyer or a physical therapist or a pharmacist or whatever, but it's still your responsibility to get the job. So you're paying for that education, but there's something that's happening with, and I think you said this, it's the perception of the person who sees the marketing, and then they create this vision of how they would fit into that. And like they're being sold to, right? We're all being sold to. Yeah. And then they buy into that illusion or that perception or that creative story that they come up with, but they skip the understanding of what's required to become that successful person, like what's required to be an entrepreneur or to be the doctor or to open the clinic or to create the like the business front. I'll say direct sales is the same thing, because this is being called out in the MLM companies. This is there's actually a thing on Netflix right now. What is it called? LuLaRoe, that's about the multi-level marketing.
Yeah, the Lululemon stuff.
And then the things with the cult and Saint John of God, that's on Netflix now. So it's here, like in divine timing. Seriously, like you couldn't pick the timing any better, because as this is evolving in the material world and we're seeing the explosion of it, these things were being documented way before, like the movies are out now. And so it's an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think part of this as well is like revealing like hidden agendas, right? So, and that's kind of what we're seeing when we like experience corruption. Let's just look at it on like a global scale, and you know, you see all bankers are really corrupt, and that's not a conspiracy, right? Like everyone knows that, but there's like hidden stuff, right? So it's our responsibility on, if we're offering something, to be, you know, very transparent and not have those hidden agendas. And I think that is a big problem with like the sales and especially sales of coaching and things like that, or healing or whatever it is, you know, the responsibility of being very direct and open and not just having this hidden, you know, agenda around it. Because people can know how to sell something, but not actually have something of value, you know, right. or it's more like they're just really good at sales. And then like what they're providing is not actually unique or different or helpful.
What's happening when the client comes in, like in this case that you're talking about, being really good at marketing, really good at sales, really good at highlighting success stories. And then the client comes in, and then you don't have the skill set to help them break through some of the stuff that's going to be required. And then there's this gaslighting and this shaming where you're not working hard enough, you're not doing enough, you're not, you know, it's like, it's just your thoughts. Like it keeps coming back and forth right there. And that's what the claim or the damage is about. It's that I trusted you, you sold me, I trusted you, I invested because I believed you. I believed it enough to know that I could do it, but the belief in the process may have been what's lacking. So for some, you'll get in and it's the integrity of the person who sold it to you. For some, it's the belief of the individual. And for some, it's the actual product. So that's what I think is confusing things, is not knowing the whole story, not seeing all angles, that it's not necessarily the person who's being accused of being the cult leader or the distortion or whatever the thing is that's coming out. It's not necessarily, I keep coming back to the 4 agreements. Being impeccable with your words. Don't make promises that you can't deliver. If you're not willing to help those individuals that you make the agreement with, the handshake, you take their money. If they are going to have to require a little more work to help them break through that stuff and you can't help them, then let them go with someone else who can help them. That's where I see the integrity lacking. Is there's, especially in the high dollar coaching, Danielle, there's this, you have to have made at least $50,000 in order to do this. And then you get in the container and find out that there are 4 people in there who've never made $1. And so the level field is not even, the playing field is not even leveled, right? Because then the conversation shifts and they're trying to replace one-on-one coaching with this high dollar, high intensity transformation, but then they can't give the time to 30 people or to 20 people, right? Do you see what I'm saying? It's exactly what we see happening in the classroom. 30 kids all being taught the same exact thing as if they can learn on the same exact level. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, that's why I'm paying so much attention to it.
Exactly. And that's why I like with this day 50, you know, it's like the values in the community. And I think what we're moving towards and what we're seeing as the corruption is being revealed in all these areas is that we can't like present homogenized systems, right? Because that is not actually of value, because you have those 4 people, they, you know, saw the shiny, you know, package and they thought it was going to save them, and they don't know how to, you know, integrate, or it's not correct for them. Just because something worked for someone. And this is the biggest factor of conditioning and homogenization is either it's normally from a positive thing, like, oh, you see that person and they're really successful doing what they're doing, and then you try to do it that way, but it's not correct for you. Or for your own experience, like, yeah, this worked for me in the past and I'm going to keep doing it, even though it's not correct. So I think the responsibility also is that people have given their authority to these other beings. This is what creates the hierarchies. This is what implements that fear that we have, that like, oh, we're putting people above us. And where what we really need in these communities and in our world is leaders and people that can create harmony in the group and facilitate self-organization, and help people have individual freedom, and working on their own in some ways, but with a group as well. And not putting themselves in this other space. It's like, no, this is how we have to do it. And yeah, I mean, and all of us taking on our own authority, first and foremost, that is our responsibility, not expecting someone else to save us or anything like that. That's like old paradigm stuff,
And it's by the marketing doing the selling, and then having more people who learn how to market this way, and having more people in that community learn how to do it that way. It's like we're just seeing it more and more and more and more of it. In the yoga community, the backlash that I was seeing there was like, as if the teacher like made these promises and convinced the students' prosperity and success as yoga teachers in these high dollar programs. And we all know yoga is not the best way to make money unless you have another tool set. Like, it's not, you're not going to, like, I shouldn't say not support yourself, because I don't know what your expenses are, but teaching class at $25 and teaching 3 or 4 classes a week, like if you add those numbers up, it's not really sustainable. But there's other things that you can do. You can sell series, you can sell, packages, you can do one-on-one. There's other ways to monetize yoga. And I think what they're saying is they had the perception that they were going to be like this glorified yoga teacher, this celebrity yoga teacher that was going to have all of these people who were coming to them and wanting to pay them money, and not realizing that their money was actually coming from the yoga teacher training, not from being the yoga teacher.
Right.
I think just being transparent about it and allowing people to be in their position. Some are meant to be leaders. Some are meant to be role models. Some are guides. Like, let's just go according to what it is that we have to contribute to the world, and quit trying to do it compared to what someone else has done.
Yeah, exactly. And an interesting thought on that as well is that, like, when we do stuff, like when we are thinking about, making money or whatever it is, and our contribution to society, like our value, right? And all of that as a leader, the hidden agenda thing is, if it's motivated by money, you already decreased your value. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because you're not doing it for yourself. You're not doing it, like, at least for me, like for my work and everything that I do, it's like, I love it. Like it educates me and expands my consciousness. So yes, I'm like being of service to others, but it's also for myself. Mm-hmm. And that's like one of the things that we have to have as the ingredient is, like, whatever you're providing, you have to get that satisfaction, or it has to expand 100%. Your growth. And it can't just be like money driven, or that's not really a value. Then you've taken your consciousness and your energy and your abilities, instead of focusing on your craft and like what makes you satisfied or at peace or success or surprise. And now it's like just focused on this other agenda. And even Ra talks about this, like, we're in a specific time in evolution between now and the mutation that's happening in 2027. And we are not supposed to be focused on survival. Like, that is not what our vehicle is here for. Like, we are here to gain knowledge, to understand why we exist. And like, so many people have corrupted that like understanding of life. So we're not actually even responding to life anymore. We're like trying to push through and like, well, if I do this, then I'll make money. And it's like, no, this is what the gift of the 50 is trusting in self-organization, that the hierarchy or the heterarchy, whatever's, the organization is going to come together, is about being in the now and following like what your value is each moment, and not projecting into the future. Like, oh, well, if I do this, this and that, and you just focus on marketing or getting a lot of clients or things like that, you've like lost the point, and corrupted your experience. Yeah. So,
and if you really sit back and look at what they're buying, when they're buying that marketing,
Right.
They are buying the money. They are buying the money in game. That is it. Because I remember in our copy, we said, like I work with healing focused entrepreneurs. And one of the problems that we have to overcome is the fact that they are not working for the money. They are working for the satisfaction. They are working for the clients to get help. They're working for the community, and they have to override that it's okay to make money. It's okay to support yourself. It's kind of the opposite of that. But when you look at multi-level marketing, at yoga, at coaching, it is driven by you can do the thing you love to do and make money doing it. And what they are highlighting is the amount of money. These awards behind me, these little glass awards, are getting on the stage for making over $100,000. Like it is the focus. It is what is celebrated. It is the thing. And so that's most people buying it are buying that.
It's the program on the planet, which is the ego. The ego, which is only 30%, about 35% of the world actually has it defined. And the rest of us, 65%, it's like, that's the programming on the planet, is like success is money, is happiness, is all these things we say. And that is also another corruption, right? It's not true. Like, that's not what we're here to do. We can get that. But that's what the gift of this 50 is about, trusting in the self-organization of it. Your responsibility is to your values, right? Your integrity. And if you do that, then that's what people buy. Like, I've literally figured out for a long time that people will buy what you like pour your love into, because it's the energy behind it. Right. It's the energy behind it. We all know when we're being sold, and it's like vanilla. It's just the formula, the words, the this and that. And like, then we feel when something's actually fucking real, and we're like, okay, that feels good. Like, there's something about that feels real.
Okay, hold on. I want to explore here. So, because I'm in this, right? So I'm in this world, and I see the celebrity coaching, the marketing, I see all that, selling the results and however much. So I'm there. I'm in the community. I've been a part of that. And then I'm here and I'm talking about self-healing and being in your authentic inner essence, where you are creating and contributing and connecting, and you have something to offer the world that you can monetize to make a living, right? It's like, it's reciprocity.
Sure.
Well, I'm in the community. I have my message, and here's this message. This one way out voices me. Because these people who want this buy the marketing. And I hear it after they spent the 30,000, the 50,000, the 60,000, the 12, whatever it is. And I'm like, I was here the whole entire time, but they weren't believing this until this failed. And I mean, I really had to let that go, because I was so frustrated and I was in protection mode, and I was trying to be like, can't you see that? But then I realized I was working against something, instead of being in my integrity and I let people have their experience, let them spend all their money, all their savings, all their whatever, and know that at the end of that time, they were not going to be served. It's a cutoff, and you only get group calls. You don't get one-on-one coaching. You don't necessarily even get your name picked and to get coaching. So if you get left behind, you get left behind. It's no big deal. They're just going to replace you, because now they have the celebrity highlight. So they got plenty of people coming in. So I see it clear as day. And you just said it, which is confirming it. And so it is the person's responsibility to do their homework and to really look at these success stories and talk to other people. But they want to be part of the popular club. So they're willing to pay that in hopes to get that result that they're being sold to. And that's where I see the distortion.
Yeah. And that's all just conditioning. And like, to be honest, like those type of people that go to those things, and maybe that's correct for them to have that particular experience. Like,
exactly.
None of my business. And the people that come to me, I've been working with people that they stay with me for years and just will contact me on the blue. And it's like, you can see that their lives are really, they're really getting into what they love. And that to me is the value, like, for them, is what can they do that they love, and stay in that. And it doesn't matter about all this like marketing that's crazy. And because that's what we're seeing on the whole planet. Like, that's literally just a fractal of what we're seeing on the whole planet. Well, we're all experienced this corruption in sales and marketing. And, we've been sold lies over and over and over and over, and that's ending. All of that's going to be exposed.
Well, they're going out with a bang. They're not wanting to let it go.
Right.
I can tell you that. And like I said, I've been on all sides of it, and I see it. My hardest part is letting go of clients when their time is up. So that's why I created Self-Healing Masters. It was like, I need a place where they can stay and don't have to keep investing, and we can keep growing and doing the work together and helping evolve other people. But it was really hard because I'm in this container and I'm seeing that cutoff. I'm witnessing it. I'm seeing what it feels like, to not get it. And then I am the people pleaser, the codependent who will like die serving, right? Because that's kind of our theme, is like, we will die. It's like, dying to serve. Like, no matter what, I'll go broke. I'll eat bread and water. I just have to help people. We have to find a balance. We have to find it in between.
That's the equilibrium, the gift of the 50, is that balance. And so everyone watching this, like, where in your life, like, do you need to nurture yourself more and love yourself more? And like, maybe even establish different rules for your relationships, where maybe you're overgiving or you're not being responsible in certain areas of your life. And if you start with that, then you can start to have a better foundation for when these programs or these lies come at you, these sales things, and you'll be able to know what's actually correct because you can feel it moment to moment.
Yes.
What's coming through. So
that's the beauty of your strategy and authority, is really, how to make correct decisions going in. And so you can recognize, because that might be the container for you. Like, I'm not saying it's not. I've learned lots of stuff there. It's exactly what I needed to experience. Yeah. And to note what I don't want. Like, I was able to see what wasn't effective or what was maybe even harmful, and how can I shift and move this? So I needed the experience. I'm 100%. Like, I spent a lot of money and a lot of time, lots of years in this in order to be able to know what I know now. But that's our role, as 6-2s, that's what we do. We learn through experience. I don't have any bad blood. Like, I don't see that it was a problem. But what I'm seeing with these accusations is that it is a problem. And where's the responsibility of, I'm going to make my investment back. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to ask questions if I feel lost, if I'm confused, if I'm frustrated, if I'm, that I'm going to be willing to raise my hand. Because that's what I saw not happen when I was being accused of it, right? It was like, every single call is like, hey, what do you need? What's going on? Who's in a bind? And there was like that hiding, because that's what we do when we're in shame or when we're not figuring it out or we're confused. It's like, we don't want to take responsibility for being transparent, for being honest. So I wanted to bring up the aspect of seeing it from both angles. Mm-hmm. And the question that you just like, where am I not taking responsibility? Where am I expecting someone to know better than me? Where am I expecting someone to be responsible for my success, whatever that success looks like?
Yeah. Yep. And were you going into this victimhood out of fear of responsibility? Because we're seeing that too in the whole racial divide and all the programs on the planet that are meant to like kind of reveal the victimhood. And we can either fall into that and be like, oh yeah, I'm a victim, and that's why all this is happening. Or we can be like, okay, no, I don't, that's not my value. Like, that is not part of like my integrity. I'm not just going to like bow down to all that and, corruption and all that stuff. So I think we're all getting that lesson of personal responsibility. It's funny because I made a post yesterday that said, believe in what you stand for, even if you stand alone. And I got censored by Facebook. And I just think it's so funny for like what we're talking about, because that's what's required with this equilibrium, the harmony, the leaders, right? The leaders, the people that are strong and have values are able to do that. And that's what makes a good leader. If it's corruption, it's through hidden agendas, it's through lies, it's through deception and sales techniques, right? Like psychology.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like it's orchestrated in a way that they know most people will not make it through. And so it's kind of set up for that.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good. And it doesn't feel good to be on the other side of it. Anyway, well, that's what we have for you this week, guys. You can, if you want to book a reading with Danielle, the link will be below. If you want to come along and do this work in Self-Healing Masters, the link will be below. Comment here. We'll come back and answer if you have any questions. If you're watching this on replay, let us know. We do have a Facebook group called More Than Mindset that is free. And if you want to come in, Danielle and I are both in there. You can tag either one of us and ask questions. If you don't know about your human design, just Google human design chart, free chart. You're going to need your birth time, and start researching. We do these calls every single week. So you can come into the group, post questions, and we will have a conversation of whatever it is. We kind of go with what we're sensing and what's happening in the planets at the same time. So we're using human design, gene keys, astrology, cosmology in order to tell the story of what we're experiencing in the game so that we can be aware and be a part of playing it well, playing it in a way that serves us.
Exactly.